Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English story. Let me tell you a story. Not just any story, but one that feels like a late-night conversation with a close friend, the kind where you're curled up on a couch, a warm drink in hand, and the world outside fades away. This is a story about life, about the messy, beautiful, and often painful process of figuring out who you are and where you're going. It's about the forces that push us forward, both the toxic ones that whisper you're not enough and the genuine ones that remind us, you got this. It's about designing your destiny, even when the path is unclear and the road is rough. This is my story, but it's also yours. I used to think destiny was something that happened to you, like a script written by some unseen hand, where you were just an actor playing a role. I spent years waiting for my big break, for the moment when everything would fall into place. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Instead, life handed me a series of struggles, revelations, and unexpected turns that forced me to rethink everything I thought I knew. It all started with a dream. Not the kind you have at night, but the kind that keeps you awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering, what if? For me, that dream was writing. I want to be a writer, not just someone who scribbled in a journal, but someone whose words could move people, change lives. The problem? I had no idea how to get there. I was stuck in a job that paid the bills, but left my soul empty. And every time I tried to write, I was paralyzed by fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. That fear became my toxic motivation. It was the voice in my head that said, "You'll never make it." But also, you have to try harder, do more, be better. It was a relentless push and pull, a cycle of self-doubt and overwork that left me exhausted and unfulfilled. I was running on a treadmill, going nowhere fast, and I didn't know how to stop. Then, one day, everything changed. It was a Tuesday, of all days. Nothing special about it. No dramatic event. No life-altering revelation. Just an ordinary Tuesday. I was sitting at my desk, staring at a blank screen, willing the words to come. They didn't. Instead, I found myself scrolling through social media, comparing my life to everyone else's highlight reels. Big mistake. By the time I closed my laptop, I felt like a failure. I was drowning in self-doubt, and I didn't know how to pull myself out. That's when I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my best friend, Sarah. Sarah and I had been through everything together: high school drama, college heartbreaks, the ups and downs of adulthood. She was the kind of friend who could always make me laugh, even when I felt like crying. But this time, I wasn't calling to laugh. I was calling because I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't alone. When she picked up the phone, I didn't even say hello. I just blurted out, "I don't know what I'm doing with my life." There was a pause on the other end. And then Sarah said, "Okay, let's start there." What followed was a conversation that changed everything. Sarah didn't offer me platitudes or empty advice. She didn't tell me to just believe in myself or follow my dreams. Instead, she asked me questions, hard questions. What did I really want? What was holding me back? What would it feel like to let go of the fear and just try? As we talked, I realized something. I had been waiting for permission. Permission to fail. Permission to succeed. Permission to be myself. But the truth was, no one was going to give me that permission. I had to take it for myself. That conversation was the first step in a long, winding journey, one that's still unfolding. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't linear. There were moments of triumph and moments of despair. Moments when I felt like I was on top of the world, and moments when I wanted to give up. But through it all, I learned something invaluable. Destiny isn't something that happens to you. It's something you design. Let me take you back to one of the lowest points in my journey. It was about a year after that conversation with Sarah, and I made some progress. I had started writing regularly, even if it was just for myself. I had taken a few risks, put myself out there in ways that felt terrifying but also exhilarating. But then, something happened that knocked me off my feet. I submitted a piece of writing to a prestigious publication, a piece I had poured my heart and soul into. I had convinced myself that this was it, my big break. When the rejection email came, it felt like a punch to the gut. All the old fears came rushing back. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. Why even try? I spent days wallowing in self-pity, convinced that I was a failure. But then, something shifted. I remembered something Sarah had said during that life-changing conversation. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process. Those words hit me like a lightning bolt. I realized that I had been so focused on the end goal, getting published, becoming a real writer, that I had forgotten why I started writing in the first place. It wasn't for fame or recognition. It was because I loved it, because it made me feel alive. That realization was a turning point. I stopped chasing external validation and started focusing on the joy of creation. I wrote because it made me happy, because it helped me make sense of the world. And slowly, something amazing happened. My writing got better. Not because I was trying harder, but because I was being true to myself. Here's the thing about designing your destiny. It's not about controlling every detail or avoiding failure. It's about embracing the messiness of life and finding meaning in the journey. It's about listening to your inner voice. Even when the world is shouting at you to go in a different direction. It's about taking risks, making mistakes, and learning from them. There's a quote I love by the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. That's what designing your destiny is all about learning to love the questions, even when the answers aren't clear. As I look back on my journey, I see a tapestry of struggles, revelations, and unexpected turns. There are moments when I felt lost, moments when I felt like giving up. But there were also moments of profound realization, moments when I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. One of those moments came just a few months ago. I was sitting in a coffee shop, working on a new piece of writing. The words were flowing, and I felt that familiar sense of joy and purpose. As I looked around the room, I noticed the other people, students studying, friends laughing, strangers lost in thought. And it hit me. We're all on our own journeys, all trying to figure out who we are and where we're going. We're all designing our destinies, one choice at a time. So, here's my challenge to you. Take a moment to reflect on your own journey. What's your dream? What's holding you back? What would it feel like to let go of the fear and just try? Remember, destiny isn't something that happens to you. It's something you design. And if you ever feel lost, remember this. You're not alone. We're all in this together, navigating the messy, beautiful, and often painful process of figuring out who we are and where we're going. So take a deep breath, trust the process, and keep moving forward. Your destiny is waiting for you to design it. This is my story, but it's also yours. Let's make a good one. Moral of the story: designing your destiny is a choice. The heart of this story is a simple but profound truth. You're the architect of your own life. Destiny isn't a pre-written script or a fixed path. It's a series of choices, big and small, that shape who you are and where you're going. The journey won't always be easy. The journey won't always be easy, and there will be moments when you feel lost, scared, or unsure. But even in those moments, you have the power to choose. You can choose to let fear hold you back, or you can choose to take a step forward, even if it's a small one. You can choose to listen to the toxic voices that tell you you're not enough. where you can choose to believe in yourself, even when it's hard. The moral isn't that life will always go your way or that you'll never fail. It's that failure, struggle, and uncertainty are all part of the process. They're not roadblocks, they're stepping stones. Designing your destiny means embracing the messiness of life, learning from your mistakes, and staying true to yourself, even when the world tries to pull you in a different direction. It's about finding joy in the journey, even when the destination isn't clear. So, if there's one thing I hope you take away from this story, it's this: you have the power to design your destiny. It's not about perfection or control, it's about courage, authenticity, and the willingness to keep going, no matter what. Part 2: the unexpected turns. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Just when you think you've figured things out, something happens that turns everything upside down. That's what happened to me. And it's probably happened to you, too. But here's the thing: those unexpected turns, they're not the end of the story. They're just the beginning of a new chapter. After that moment in the coffee shop, I felt like I was finally on the right track. I was writing regularly, finding joy in the process, and even starting to share my work with others. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. And then, out of nowhere, life threw me a curveball. My mom got sick. It wasn't something I saw coming. One day, she was her usual vibrant self. And the next, she was in the hospital, facing a diagnosis that turned our world upside down. Suddenly, everything else, my writing, my dreams, my carefully designed destiny, felt insignificant. All that mattered was being there for her. For months, my life revolved around hospital visits, doctor's appointments, and late night Google searches about treatments and outcomes. I put my writing on hold, telling myself I'd get back to it when things settled down. But as the weeks turned into months, I started to feel like I was losing myself. Writing had become such a big part of who I was, and without it, I felt adrift. One night, after a particularly long day at the hospital, I found myself sitting on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by notebooks and half-finished drafts. I was exhausted, emotionally and physically, but I couldn't sleep. So, I did the only thing that felt right. I started writing. I didn't write about my mom's illness or the fear that had become a constant companion. Instead, I wrote about the small moments of beauty I had noticed in the midst of the chaos. The way the sunlight streamed through the hospital window in the morning. The kindness of the nurses who went out of their way to make us smile. The quiet strength my mom showed even on her hardest days. As I wrote, something shifted inside me. I realized that even in the darkest moments, there is light. Even in the midst of pain, there is beauty. And even when life feels completely out of control, we still have the power to choose how we respond. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let my circumstances define me. I wasn't going to put my dreams on hold indefinitely. Instead, I was going to find a way to keep moving forward, even if it was just one small step at a time. Over the next few months, I started to carve out time for writing again. It wasn't easy. There were days when I felt guilty for taking time for myself, days when I was so tired I could barely think straight. But I kept going, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Writing became my anchor, my way of making sense of the world and finding meaning in the midst of chaos. And then something amazing happened. One of the pieces I wrote during that time, a raw, honest reflection on love, loss, and resilience, caught the attention of an editor at a publication I had admired for years. They wanted to publish it. When I got the email, I cried, not because it was a big break, but because it felt like validation, not just of my writing, but of my journey. It was proof that even in the hardest moments, we can create something beautiful. It was proof that designing your destiny isn't about avoiding pain or hardship. It's about finding a way to keep going, even when the road is rough. Today, my mom is doing better. She's not out of the woods yet, but she's fighting, and so are we. And me? I'm still writing. I'm still figuring things out. I'm still designing my destiny, one choice at a time. If there's one thing I've learned from this journey, it's that life is unpredictable. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to let the hard moments define you, or you can choose to find meaning in them. You can choose to give up, or you can choose to keep going. So, whatever curveballs life throws your way, remember this: you're the architect of your own life. You have the power to design your destiny, even when the path is unclear. And no matter what happens, you are stronger, braver, and more resilient than you think. The ripple effect, life, I've come to realize, is not a straight line. It's more like a series of ripples. Each choice, each moment, sending out waves that touch everything around us. Sometimes, those ripples are small, barely noticeable. Other times, they're tidal waves, reshaping the landscape of our lives in ways we never could have imagined. The hardest part is accepting that we can't always predict where those ripples will lead. But the most beautiful part? Knowing that even the smallest actions can create profound change. After my mom's illness and the publication of that deeply personal piece, something shifted, not just in me, but in the way I approach life. I began to see my journey not as a solitary path, but as part of a larger tapestry, woven together by the lives and stories of everyone around me. And that's when I started to notice something extraordinary: the ripple effect of my choices. It started with a message. A stranger emailed me after reading my piece, sharing her own story of loss and resilience. She told me how my words had given her the courage to keep going, to find beauty in the midst of her own pain. I cried reading her email, not just because her story moved me, but because it reminded me of something I had almost forgotten. Our stories matter. They have the power to connect us, to heal us, to remind us that we're not alone. That message was the first ripple. It inspired me to keep writing, not just for myself, but for others. I started sharing more openly, more vulnerably, about my struggles and triumphs. And the more I shared, the more ripples I created. Readers reached out to tell me how my words had helped them through their own dark moments. Some even shared how they had started writing or pursuing their own dreams because of something I had said. It was humbling, to say the least. I had always thought of writing as a solitary act, something I did for myself. But now, I saw it as something bigger, a way to connect, to inspire, to create ripples that could touch lives far beyond my own. But the ripple effect didn't stop there. It spread to other areas of my life, too. I started to notice how small acts of kindness, moments of vulnerability, and even my own struggles were creating waves in the lives of those around me. Take Sarah, for example. Remember her? The friend who helped me see that I was waiting for permission to live my life? Well, she called me one day, out of the blue, to tell me that our conversation all those years ago had changed her, too. She had been stuck in a job she hated, feeling trapped and unfulfilled. But after our talk, she had started to take small steps toward her own dreams. She had gone back to school, pursued a career she was passionate about, and was now thriving in ways she never thought possible. You inspired me, she said, and I was floored. I had no idea that our conversation had meant so much to her, that it had set her on a path she was now flourishing on. It was a powerful reminder that we never know how our words or actions might impact someone else. Even the smallest ripple can create waves we never see coming. And then there was my mom. Her illness had been one of the hardest things I'd ever faced, but it had also been a catalyst for growth for both of us. As she fought to regain her health, she began to open up about her own dreams and regrets. She told me stories I had never heard before about the life she had imagined for herself when she was young and the choices that had led her away from that path. One day, she said something that stopped me in my tracks. I don't want you to wait as long as I did to live your life. Those words hit me like a thunderclap. They were a reminder that time is precious, that we don't have forever to chase our dreams. But they were also a gift, a permission slip, of sorts, to keep designing my destiny, even when it felt scary or uncertain. Inspired by her courage, I started to take bigger risks. I quit my soul-sucking job and took a leap of faith, pursuing writing full time. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when I wondered if I had made a huge mistake. But every time I felt like giving up, I thought of my mom's words, and they gave me the strength to keep going. The ripple effect even reached my relationships. I started to notice how my own growth was inspiring those around me to grow. Two, my partner, who had always been hesitant to pursue his own creative passions, started painting again. My friends began to open up about their own struggles and dreams, creating a space for deeper connection and support. Even my coworkers, before I left my job, started to take steps toward their own goals, inspired by my decision to chase mine. It was a powerful reminder that we're all connected, that our choices don't just affect us, they affect everyone around us. And when we have the courage to live authentically, to chase our dreams and embrace our struggles, we give others permission to do the same. Today, as I sit here writing this, I'm struck by how far I've come and how much further I have to go. Designing your destiny isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process, a series of choices that shape who you are and where you're going. And while I don't have all the answers, I've learned a few things along the way. First, your story matters. It has the power to inspire, to heal, to create ripples that touch lives far beyond your own. So, don't be afraid to share it, the messy, beautiful, painful parts included. Second, you never know how your choices will impact others. Even the smallest act of kindness, the tiniest step toward your dreams, can create waves you never see coming. So, choose courage, choose authenticity, choose love, and finally, you are not alone. We're all in this together, navigating the messy, beautiful, unpredictable journey of life. So, lean on each other, lift each other up, and remember that even in the darkest moments, there is light. This is my story, but it's also yours. And as we continue to design our destinies, let's remember the power we hold, not just to shape our own lives, but to create ripples that touch the lives of everyone around us. So, take a deep breath, trust the process, and keep moving forward. The world is waiting for your ripples. The legacy of choice. There comes a point in every journey when you start to think about legacy. Not in the grand, monumental sense, not the kind of legacy that gets etched into history books or carved into statues, but in the quiet, everyday sense. The kind of legacy that lives on in the hearts of the people you love, the lives you've touched, and the choices you've made. For me, that point came when I least expected it. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the air feels alive with possibility. I was sitting on my porch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping coffee and watching the leaves dance in the wind. My mom was sitting beside me, her health steadily improving, her spirit brighter than it had been in years. We weren't talking, just sitting in comfortable silence. But there was something about that moment, something so peaceful, so full, that made me think about the bigger picture. Mom, I said, breaking the silence, what do you think your legacy is? She didn't answer right away. She just smiled, her eyes fixed on the horizon, as if she were turning the question over in her mind. Finally, she said, I think my legacy is you. Her words caught me off guard. I had expected her to talk about her career, her friendships, the way she had raised me, not to point directly at me. But as I thought about it, I realized she was right. Our legacies aren't just the things we accomplish or the marks we leave on the world. They're the people we inspire, the love we give, and the choices we make that ripple through generations. That conversation stayed with me long after the leaves had fallen and the seasons had changed. It made me think about my own legacy, not just as a writer or a daughter, but as a human being. What kind of mark did I want to leave on the world? What kind of ripples did I want to create? The answer came to me slowly, in pieces. It wasn't something I could articulate in a single sentence or a grand mission statement. Instead, it was woven into the fabric of my everyday life, the way I showed up for the people I loved, the way I pursue my dreams, the way I tried to live with intention and authenticity. One of the most profound realizations I had during this time was that legacy isn't something you build at the end of your life. It's something you create every single day, in the choices you make and the way you live. It's in the way you treat the barista who makes your coffee, the way you listen to a friend who's struggling, the way you show up for yourself, even on the hard days. For me, that meant continuing to write, even when it felt like no one was reading. It meant being there for my mom, not just as her daughter, but as her friend. It meant showing up for my partner, my friends, and myself with love and patience, even when life felt overwhelming. But it also meant something bigger. It meant using my voice to create ripples of hope and connection. I started to think about my writing not just as a personal passion, but as a way to contribute to the world. I began to focus on stories that mattered, stories about resilience, about love, about the messy, beautiful process of being human. And as I did, I started to see the impact those stories could have. One day, I received an email from a young woman who had read one of my pieces. She told me she had been struggling with depression, feeling like she was alone in her pain. But something about my words had made her feel seen, less alone. She said she had started writing, too, as a way to process her emotions and make sense of her life. You made me believe that my story matters, she wrote, and that's changed everything. Reading her words, I felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, humility, and a deep sense of purpose. It was a reminder that our legacies aren't just about what we leave behind. They're about what we give in the present. They're about the way we show up for each other, the way we use our gifts to make the world a little brighter. As I continued to reflect on legacy, I realized something else. It's not just about the big moments. It's about the small, everyday choices that define who we are. It's about the way we choose to love, to forgive, to grow. It's about the way we choose to design our destinies, even when the path is unclear. For me, that meant embracing the messiness of life, the highs and lows, the triumphs and failures. It meant learning to see every experience, every choice, as part of a larger tapestry. And it meant understanding that my legacy wasn't something I had to chase or achieve. It was something I was already creating every single day. Today, as I sit here writing this, I think about that morning on the porch with my mom. I think about the ripples we've created together, the love we've shared, and the choices that have brought us to this moment. And I think about the legacy we're both leaving, not just for each other, but for the world. So, here's my challenge to you. Think about your legacy, not on the grand. Monumental sense, but in the quiet, everyday sense. What kind of ripples do you want to create? What kind of mark do you want to leave on the world? And most importantly, what choices can you make today to start building that legacy? I'm so glad you spent this time with me. If you like the story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Take care and see you next time.